As far back as I can remember, I always wanted to interview a gangster. And today was the day, because he's waiting inside for me. To me, interviewing a gangster was better than interviewing the President of the United States.
Anything good yet? I wouldn't be standing here if I did.
Good point. Well, grab a good cigar. It's gonna be a long conversation. Let it be the thing that I am longing for. Even before I ever met one, I always heard stories about them from my father. I watched the movies. I read about them. And today was my chance to speak to one.
Stack the books up, hit the spyglass, search and look up the lazy intellectual, the podcast, the hookup. Romanous to give a toast up with the good stuff. Took a puff, then in reverse, I lit a stick up. It's obvious, the need to sit down and politic. What's on your mind? Share with the audience, the Christ fearing Assyrian, giving them providence. Omega my wrist, shine in my face cause I polished it. From the time when the emperors reigned, what is it? To lose your soul, but the whole world gained. I think it's insane, God memorized your name. From the deaf, dumb, blind, even the lame. It's like a torch flame, illuminating a cave. No mummy rap, we up out of the grave. Thanks and praise every day for God's grace. So slide through, watch an interview and get a taste.
Today I have with me a made man from the Mafia Genovese crime family who rose to the rank of boss, overseeing the territories of Albany, Massachusetts, Hartford, and Springfield. Mr. Anthony Arillotta, thank you so much for making the time. I've been looking forward to this sit down for some time now.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So I actually, besides hearing amazing stories from your past, am interested in getting a perspective of the Mafia that not too many people hear about too often. Because when they hear about the Mafia, they think of the golden age of the Mafia. That's from the 50s to the 80s, right? You come from a more modern age, from the late 80s to 90s up into 2010. And that actually coincidentally is also the same time frame where the infamous TV show The Sopranos takes place in. So you have a very unique perspective that you could dive into, and we can talk about the parallels of that life from the real life and from the movies. But first, I want to start from the beginning. So since you were a kid, you were actually a very violent youth, but your father was a legitimate man, wine distribution. You had a whole family. Your dad was there. Your mom was there. They were married. Stand-up guy, had money, raised you right.
Yeah.
But you still got violent.
Yeah.
So I'm curious, why were you so violent? Were you trying to get good with the neighborhood kids? Were you trying to make a name for yourself with the mob guys that were around your town? Talk to me about that.
That's a good question because I don't know why. Just growing up, since I was a little kid in kindergarten, first grade, we were always fighting. So I don't know, what. I grew up with a great family, loving family, big family, both sides, my mother's side and my father's side. My father was a successful fruit and produce, like you said, was the biggest wine grape distributor in all of Massachusetts. So yeah, I don't know. It had nothing to do with family life growing up. I think it was just something inside of me that it wasn't like, and it wasn't like, when you say violent, it was justifiable violence. Like, and when I say that, I mean, like, I wasn't just going out and beating up guys or getting into fights with guys for no reason. There would be an argument. So there was a reason, whether that's a good reason or not, and then it would lead to a fight as young kids. Then when we're getting older, it led to we're into more of a gang activity, kind of like we Italians in the South End. So we were sort of like this gang, and like every gang, you protect your territory type thing, and not, protect, but it was where we hung around. So any outsiders, it would lead to that. Any different neighborhoods, we got into a beef, fights with them. And to the extreme though, where it went, with the weapons that were used, it just escalated. They had weapons on us. They would use guns, knives, bats, clubs, and we would use it back. Those are the type of fights we got into. So that's how it would escalate to more dangerous situations. But yeah, I just don't, know why the violence was there.
So it wasn't so much that you had a abusive father or that it wasn't so much nurture. It was more of just your nature. That was the way you're wired. You're comfortable with getting into altercations.
I think my father never even got into a flake. Same thing. He grew up with, Italians. We had a heavily populated Italian community, Irish and Italian. I grew up in one section when I first was younger, a lot of Irish and Italians. My father grew up there. Part of it could be, we were, the Mafia had a big presence in the world back then. The 70s growing up. It was, like a rival the United States government as far as power. The young kids today don't realize that.
Yeah.
How like when you hear today about like Pablo Escobar or El Chapo, to the levels of that. But, they were in Colombia, they were in Mexico. You had the Mafia, which was worldwide, but here in the United States.
Right. And so there was actually something interesting that I wanted to ask you about, which is the movies, the Hollywood.
Yeah.
So you probably grew up with watching Goodfellas, Casino, Godfather. So in a way, do you think that the American Hollywood industry was one of the best recruiting things that the Mafia could have used to get young guys like yourself to be inspired by it? Like ironically flip people into that life because it showed the glamour of the criminal lifestyle, right?
Absolutely. I think that's what ruins these young kids today.
Did that influence you to join the Mafia?
100%. Well, not influence me to join it, but make you want to be part of that life. I started with the Godfathers. So Godfather 1 and 2. Godfather 3 was horrible, but 1 and 2... like I'm growing up, you got my grandparents watching it. Everyone, was watching The Godfather 1 and 2,
Right.
when it came out in the early 70s. So when I start watching it, I'm still, in my, 8, 9, 10 years. I see my grandparents watching it, my father, my mother. Growing up Italian, I'm full-blooded Italian. And you see what you're watching on TV, guys like that in the city that I'm in. And coming into my father's store. And, who are these guys? And so it was a big part of it. But the movies, not only did they corrupt back then, the streets weren't like what is today. It was pretty much the organized crime dominated the streets up until like the 80s and maybe up into the 90s. Then you started seeing gangs emerging. And those gangs are following the same thing. You could say Hollywood, but you could say the music industry with these rappers rapping about these, how great it is. Meanwhile, they never, ever shot a gun, majority of them. And you can see what's going out today. The majority of them are getting arrested for all kinds of sexual abuse and all that type of stuff. So, but then the songs that they do, these young kids listen to these songs, gangster songs, heavily influenced, just like the movies. So, Goodfellas come out, young kid sees that, he wants to go out and shoot people in the head.
Right.
And then the Mafia was still powerful back then. Now, so you want to be a part of that.
Well, it was like a double-edged sword, right? Because it was shining a light to what's supposed to be an underground criminal syndicate. No one's supposed to know about the Mafia.
Right.
But now it's also making the guys in it look really good to the public, making them be like, oh, when they come into the place, you got to give them respect. They have the authority, and it adds that notoriety.
Sure, and they got their respect. When they came in my father's store, everyone treated them, rolled up the red carpet.
Yeah.
Treated them great.
You talk about your father a lot. I love it because I talk about my dad a lot on the show too, the influences that he's had on me and my brother's life. And so when he found out that you became a made man, which we'll get into specifically, you told him in excitement. And he said to you, why would you do that?
Yeah.
He was disappointed.
Yeah.
How did that make you feel?
So he always didn't want me to be part of that life. But his life was, hard-working, back-breaking work.
Legitimate guy, yeah.
Legitimate guy, but there's also like a lot of legitimate guys that own multiple businesses that don't lift a finger.
Blue collar versus white collar.
Yeah, so he was like the blue-collar successful businessman.
Right.
He did it all, and it was back-breaking work, that work. And so I grew up in the south end of Springfield. All the organized crime guys were down there. My uncle was the driver for the boss. And so he never wanted me to hang around with them. He never wanted me to be involved in that life. You're not going to grow up to be one of them. And when I got older, he couldn't say and control me because I started making money on the streets, and that's where I made my money. But when I got made, to answer your question, I told him the next day, and I said that, because he knew things were going on. He wasn't part of that life, but all the wise guys were in his store. And so Bruno was in his store all the time. He was kind of like he is my cousin on my mother's side. So he would go golfing with my father. They were very close. And so, but he knew things were going on. I told him I got made. And he said, "Oh, why'd you do that for?" Those were his words. And he goes, "What'd you do that for?"
How'd that make you feel?
He's worried about his son. And he knows that's a treacherous life. He's a smart man. Always told me to stay away. You can't be a king on earth. That life doesn't last. You end up dead. You end up going to prison. Everyone wants your position, So, and then when I told him that, he was kind of like, you could tell he was worried. Like, what'd you do that for?
Was there anyone at the time when you were young that if they just got a hold of you at some point, they sat you down, they're like, "Anthony, listen, this life is going to lead down a bad path." Your dad told you, you either get taken away in handcuffs or you end up dead. Was there anyone else besides your father that if they sat you down, they could have averted you from entering that lifestyle, the mafia?
So my father, we had so many, when I got married, there was 4 judges at my wedding. They were, my family was friends with doctors. If you needed something wrong with you, you didn't have to wait at a hospital. The doctor would get out of bed and meet you down the hospital. And my father was, and had a lot of connections, but legitimately connections. They used to go into his store. They used to come over our house and eat. All those people told me, stop hanging around with, the mobsters, that life is no good. They tell you that, but then they don't tell you how to survive in the world. My father has a successful business, but that's his business. It's not mine. And if he carved out a spot for me where I was making $5,000 a week, maybe that would have deterred me from entering that life. Because at the end, it's all about the money. And so if he said to me, I made millions and lots of money on the street. But if he said to me, "Listen, come work for me and I'll give you $5,000 a week and we'll figure this out to make this to be like build it into a supermarket, a supermarket,
right.
Expand it, go to the next level."
Right.
But he didn't. And I ended up on the streets, and that's how that went. But I did have a lot of people, influential people telling me, but they told me not to hang around with them, but they never told you how to make the money, and they never knew how deep it was going to go and where it would lead to.
How much money were you making a week when you were just an affiliate with the mafia and when you became a made man? What was the difference?
I made more money before I became a made man. Before, yeah.
Well, give me a dollar amount per week you'd be bringing in.
I can't give you an exact, because some weeks, one day I made $470,000 in one day. That was to do with the, a marijuana deal. Mm-hmm. But on a typical day, if I had 300 pounds coming from Texas, I would off that 300, they would come in a U-Haul. I had customers that would take 60, 70, 50. I'd keep maybe 20 for the high-end guys. And off those 300 pounds, I would make, say, 500 average. I'd make 150,000 in one day. I didn't get paid. I fronted it all. So it's hard to say how much I made, weekly. But just on an average week, my goal was to make 10,000. I felt like it was a waste if I didn't make, and you're going back into the 90s. So I started the marijuana business in the early 90s. And so I built it up, and I just, I was very aggressive in it. It got to the point where I became one of the largest distributor of marijuana, pretty much Western Mass, Connecticut, same areas, and yeah, minimum I would want to make 10,000 a week. But, it got to the point where I had so many rackets and so many things. Like even when I was in prison, doing time, the money kept coming in.
How did you know the money was coming in when you were away? Were there people coming to you and telling you? Like, how do you keep track of all of that? Especially in your head. You can't write this stuff down.
I'm good with numbers, and I don't need to write stuff down, but you just know, they're going to, people are going to, when you're away in prison, they're going to grab a little bit, which they're not going to grab it to the point where they don't want me to come out and end up dead. They don't want to get killed over it.
Who's they?
The guys that I had working with me in my crew.
Your crew. Okay.
So like if I had a sports gambling business, which I had, but then I had guys that were, you needed to utilize to run the business, answering the phone, paying and collecting, cleaning guys out. Then we moved our offices overseas to Costa Rica. So you couldn't rob us because it was all documented like on computers. So at the end, nobody could rob me. I knew in the sports business. But could they say, maneuver this? I was gone from 05 to 08 at that particular time. So yeah, they could have made some maneuvers on me and some shady things. But yeah, let them. I'm in there doing my time, and I was averaging like $100,000 a month just while I was doing my time. My wife didn't have to work. I had 3 kids, and everything was good. So, yeah, the money. When I got out of prison in '93, I was broke, $100,000 in debt,
which I want to get into.
And by '97, I was a millionaire, cash millionaire, where you could put it on the table and look at it. I had 1.3 million.
Well, so your highest net worth was 1.3 million?
No, that's when I first made my first million. Everyone wants to make their
net worth in that life. What number did you get to? The reason I'm asking is because there's a lot of guys that claim they make a lot of money. I'm not saying this about you.
Yeah.
There was a list that came out a few years back where it was like the top 50 highest earning mobsters of all time.
Yeah.
It's like, how do you know these numbers? How did they get 50 guys, right?
Right.
I think Michael Francine's was like top 20, something like that.
Right. So you're not going to get that an accurate way because you're right. Because what about the guy when they raided Escobar or was it Saddam Hussein? One of them guys, they found $4 billion in containers buried somewhere and this and that cash. How did they know that he had $4 billion worth of money buried? It's not on record anywhere. So your net worth, you're never going to really know someone's true net worth because they could have $2 million in cash somewhere. They could have, like the Chabellis in my area had millions in cash from the vending business, the Joker Poker, gambling slot machines.
Explain Joker Poker.
It's like the casino. You go in and play the slot machines.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was that before all the slot machines came out? Now they're all legal everywhere and this and that. But back then, just picture where you see these casinos popping up, right?
Okay.
And there was no casinos. Only Vegas had a casino in Atlantic City.
And then you guys would create pop-up casinos.
Pretty much, but it was basically the everyone loves the slots.
Yeah.
For whatever reason.
The lights.
You see the light,
right.
the action that the slots do.
Yep.
But yeah, we did have crap games. We did have blackjack games. Those are less audience that would participate in those. But the Joker Pokers, I mean, so like say right here, we would put 3, back in the day, we would ask the guy, they all knew who we were. We had a big presence. We come in there and say, hey, can we put our machines in? Oh yeah, sure. They don't want a problem. So they'll say, yeah, go ahead. But they get half of the money. So we'll put 3 machines, say in the back somewhere. This is a place, guys will go in there putting $10, $20 in at a time. The end of the week comes, say this place right here generated $7,000. This owner gets $3,500. We'll send a guy around once a week. He'll come in, open up the machine, take out the cash, give the owner half and keep half. And they had like 200 places like that. So just figure that from the 60s, 70s, all the way up until they got arrested in 2000, right? The boss of our area, Babish Chabelli, had boxes of millions of dollars. And, he was worried that they thought if they went into his house, they probably would have grabbed $10 million in cash.
Let's say I actually want to come here and I want to put a Joker Poker machine right here in the back, right behind me.
Right.
Will I get arrested? Like, how does that work nowadays?
They crack down basically when it's organized crime involvement. If a guy like you comes and starts putting machines everywhere, you smooth sailing, you won't ever have.
Which I won't, by the way.
Yeah.
Don't come after me. Yeah.
Yeah. It's only when you have anything to do with organized crime, the government arrest you, it's in the papers. They arrest you, it's no big deal.
Yeah.
They arrest a college kid putting out some machines out, it's not a big deal. They want, the mafia, organized crime, putting machines.
Right.
They were making $50,000 a week, and they want the big, and then they get promotions and promoted and all that type of stuff.
So I actually want to understand the mentality of what it takes to actually be in the mafia. So you brought up a name early on in the conversation, Adolfo Albruno. You said he was your cousin from your mom's side. He would go golfing with your dad. He would be over your house regularly, yet with you as well. There's a story I heard, you were $77,000 in debt, and he shaved off $10,000 for you. That's not right?
No. So go ahead, what was the story? Is it when I was a young kid?
When you were a young kid.
Yeah. So that story, so the mentality of the mob, anybody can be an associate of the mob. Like you could be an associate. You're working with me. I might be selling you, marijuana. So you're an associate of the mob. You might be you might have some sports customers. You're an associate of the mob. To get, involved deeper, more or less, and you could still get involved deeper, even though you're not Italian, because, there was Irish guys, there was German guys, there was all kinds of ethnicities that were around the mob in deep with them. It's just, you couldn't be a made guy.
Unless, wasn't it your dad has to be Sicilian?
No, you just got to be Italian.
Full?
You had to be full Italian back then. Then I heard they changed the rule where you had to be at least 3/4 or half, or you had to be on your father's side at least Italian.
Right. Okay.
Like, I heard the Gotti married the wife and she wasn't full Italian, but the kid got made and whatever. So
John Gotti Jr.
Yeah, right. He wasn't full Italian. So
Gotcha.
To be a made guy, that's it takes back then you had to kill someone.
And so
Yeah.
okay,
So
we're jumping the gun.
Yeah.
I really want to talk about.
But what you asked me about what
Bruno.
No, what it takes to be that. But then we'll go back to the gambling. The gambling, I was a young kid. I was a big gambler as well. And like everything else in life, I did everything to the extreme. So gambling was one of them. I wasn't a drug user. I never did drugs. But when it came to gambling, I was sick.
You never smoked dope?
I smoked marijuana like a few times in my life. When I was younger, it was funny because it used to make us laugh, a few times. And then one time it was back in the 90s, I tried it and I got that paranoid thing. And I don't like drugs. I don't like any pills. I don't like any of that stuff. But gambling was my addiction. I was betting this office. They gave me three codes to bet, 3 numbers. I had 3 guys, let's just say, that were betting. So I was betting $4,500 a game at 16 years old, with no money. I didn't work. I worked at my father's store. The reason that these guys let me bet $4,500 a game is because they figured if I did blow a lot of money, $100,000, they could go to my father to get the money.
Oh, they knew he was good for it.
Well, yeah. If I didn't have it, they figure they could. Well, you don't have it. We'll go get it from your father.
Yeah.
Your son's in trouble. And I wasn't involved in the Mafia. Like they came in my father's store. I'm only a young kid. I'm like 16 years old. I'm still in school. So it wasn't like I was a street guy, gangster. I was a young, wild kid fighting at school, but that's all I was. They're letting me bet $4,500 a game. I ended up blowing like close to $70,000. I only had about 30 of it. And there was all kinds of major sit-downs over it. Anthony Arillotta, he was another boss in our area. Al Bruno. I ended up owing it to this guy, Rex Cunningham. He was a mobster. And so, he, called me up threatening me for the money. I'm a young kid, and they came and they wanted to straighten it all out. They thought my father was betting because my father, one thing he did do, he liked to gamble. That was his vice. Hard worker, working, this and that, but he liked to bet the football. He was good at it too. He had a reputation as everyone would want to know who he picked because, he would win.
Yeah.
They actually thought that maybe he was behind me actually putting the bets in it.
Makes sense. Yeah. When you hear threats like that as a young kid, especially you don't got the money and you're 16 years old, what's going through your mind?
Well, when you're young, at that time, I'm 16 and you're like, because you're in the wrong. I know I blew 70,000. I mean, if somebody threatened me and I was 16 years old, I would want to shoot them in their face, but I know I'm in the wrong. So
there's no fear in your heart when someone threatened you.
No, I mean, I took it as, what am I going to do? I tell my father, I go, Dad, I blew,
So going back to Al Bruno a bit. So then did he shave off that 10,000? He never shaved off?
Yeah. They cut it down from like, say, it was almost 7. I think it was like 67,000.
Yeah.
And we ended up paying like 57,000.
Did he do that as a favor because you're a family friend?
Listen, if it was back then and I was who now, I would have shot the guy Rex in his face. That's what I would have done if it was back then now. You don't take a bet from a 16-year-old kid, letting them bet $4,500. It's like when you have a business, right? You monitor your business. You put cameras so people don't rob you. You run your business accordingly. In the sports business, you're not going to let a guy bet a family guy. He's got a wife. He's got 3 kids. He makes $1,000 a week. The wife don't work. You're going to let him bet $1,000 a game and have a chance of blowing 10, 15, 20,000. He only makes $1,000 a week. So when the guy blows 20,000, right? Whose fault is it? He can't pay you. It's the guy that let him give him that credit. They should have never gave me that credit of $4,500 a game to bet a 16-year-old kid.
I got you.
But they knew my father, they could go to him.
Right.
So to me, they're scumbags for doing that. So they should have just took the whole thing and said, okay, he's got 30,000, take it all. But, the nature of the Mafia, I'm sure Bruno grabbed an end of that money. And that's why we paid 57. Like he said, he took 10,000 off. He got 57. He probably took 30,000 off and got 25 of it.
I got you. So the point I was trying to make was, so at that time, you were close with Al Bruno. You would consider him family, right?
At that time, I was still a young kid. Him coming in, and you kind of like are. You look up to a guy like him, like, oh, Bruno's here. He's a gangster. You know,
Right.
we're young kids at that level.
He was the boss of the Springfield.
Not yet, but he was a made guy.
Okay.
You know, that's the thing that, you know, everyone looks up to these mobsters. It's like, oh, they're killers. You know, you meet an actual guy and, you know, they're killers and they're part of this secret society and it's the mafia. And, you know, you see newspaper articles. So it's, you know, it's an alluring, you know, thing that draws you in, all that.
Al Bruno ends up getting murdered in November 23rd, 2003, and you were sentenced 8 years for orchestrating his murder. Is that correct?
No, I was sentenced to 8.5 years for being a part of that murder.
Okay.
Yeah.
Got you. So the reason why I bring that up is because I'm trying to understand the cutthroat mentality of the mafia. And here's something that Al Bruno used to do. Al Bruno on Sunday nights would have dinner at his house, then he would go to the Italian club and play cards there. You wrote that in your book.
Yeah.
You know his routines,
Right.
And so what the mob guys like to do when they go for hits is they figure out the guys' routines. What places do they like to go?
Sure.
When do they like to have dinner? Who do they have dinner with? Who are their friends? Who are they comfortable with? So my question before we get into deeper about Al Bruno is, if you just know the way that the mafia works, where they search for the person's routine to get them in their most comfortable state, naturally as a mobster, wouldn't you never want to establish a routine, especially make it public to people to see so you can avoid being killed if that ever came to it? Why did people have routines like that publicly?
Yeah, you're not supposed to have a routine, but everybody does. Like back then, I had a routine. When I became boss, I have a routine now. I'm a very easy guy to kill if they want to kill me. So I had a routine, the same thing back then. If you wanted to kill me, and I had the FBI come up to me and tell me, you got a hit out on you.
Right.
You know, all right, can you tell me who did it? Because I want to know who did it so I could go kill them.
Why would they tell you that?
I have to.
They have to tell you?
By law, yeah, because if they pick up on wiretap, or if they got an informant that picked up and said, you know, we picked up on wiretap that we're going to kill Anthony.
Yeah.
And they know that, by law, they have to come tell you. They're not going to tell you who, but by law, they have to come on murder, on something like that. They have to come warn you.
I figured it was trying to be like a 4D chess move for them to get you to flip. So you become an informant.
Yeah, but they can't lie about it because, they'll do all kinds of crazy, deceptive things. But yeah, they can't lie because it'll come out afterwards. There's got to be paperwork on that. So there's going to be documented information where they came up to you and said, yeah, it's there. So it'll come out afterwards, where it came out and how it came out and who was behind it and all that stuff. So the routines, there's a lot of paranoid guys, yeah. They won't have a routine. I just wasn't a paranoid guy. I didn't care. I was comfortable in, if it came, it came. And so, but yeah, the routine is the easy way. You know where a guy goes. You track him. He goes here to take a steam at the gym every day, like I did. Mm-hmm. Afterwards, he's over at this cigar shop every morning, like I did. He's at this strip club every afternoon, like I did. He's at these restaurants all the time, 6 nights a week, like I did. So, and then, like you said, there's guys close to you that will set you up. Hey, where's he going to be tonight? Hey, we're going to this restaurant. We parked in the back. We're going to eat. All right, call it, beat me when he's 10 minutes. You guys are done. 10 minutes coming out. We'll be outside waiting. Right. So your best friends always end up getting you in that life, setting you up in that life. You have no friends in that life. You think you do. But, when the boss calls in and says, hey, that's your friend? Yeah, well, we're going to kill him. If you don't set him up, we're going to kill you. And that's how serious it was then.
Absolutely. And that's something that blows my mind is that if you know these things, right, where you know that your best friend is going to set you up, right, you just all pretend to be friends and you all in the back of your minds know that the guy sitting right next to you you're laughing with can be the guy who puts a bullet in your head? Or do you genuinely have relationships and it's genuine betrayal?
I think it's both. I don't think...
Did you ever think anyone that you were close with was going to kill you?
I had people around me, but I never really trusted any of them. Yeah, they would kill me in a second. I'd kill them in a second. I didn't have like this thing where I actually could say, I love this guy. Brotherhood, I love him. I didn't have that. In fact, the closest thing I had was Al Bruno, who was close to me. He would have been the guy who would be the last one that I would want to see killed. I would, if I could go back, I'd kill the guys that ordered the killing, then kill him. But going back to the guys around me, I didn't have that love for any of them. It was a camaraderie of being around them, but they're only around me because I'm an earner. I'm a moneymaker. I can put them on. I'm violence. They know not to cross me because I'll kill them. They know that I'm capable of killing. They know that I was violent my whole life. That's why they're around me, so, but if they got an order by, say, Bruno was the boss and they got an order to take me out and they could get me into, look at the most notorious, I don't care if you killed 50 guys. If it's your time, time in that life, your time is up, you're dead. They killed, Billy Grasso in Connecticut. Yeah. It's like they'll put up, say, get you in a car, we got to go somewhere. Shoot you right in the back of the head. We're going over here. We're gonna make one of the guys tonight. We're gonna bring him in. Meanwhile, that guy thinks he's getting made, but meanwhile, we're only meeting to kill you. Right. I did business with them. It's about money.
I was about to say,
it's all about money.
As long as you're bringing in money, they're gonna keep you alive because you're making their pockets fat. Right?
But it's not even only that. It's all about money. We're working together. It's not about what you're bringing in. I never brought nobody money like that way. I worked with everybody. That's what a lot of people don't understand. They always thought like you give money to New York. We gave money to New York. We gave nothing to New York. We give nothing, me personally, I worked with Bruno, but we were partners. I'm an earner. We're doing the sports business. We're doing the loan shark business. We're doing numbers business. I'm working with him. I get a piece. Me and you open up a business. You get 30%, I get 30%, we give him 40%, we split it up. That's how it was. It wasn't like you're going in my pockets to take money out and I have to bring you the money. But at the end of the day, it's all about the money. Right. Because if you're good at making it and you're making millions of dollars, the guys around me are making $1 million a year. They're making good money too. I made millionaires out of all my crew guys growing up.
Is it because you're teaching them how the game works? Is it because they're watching you and they're learning from you? Is it because you're just keeping people straight in the streets? How does that work? How's everyone making money because you're making money?
So it would be like my marijuana business. I get marijuana. Mm-hmm. I get it at a certain price. I give it to this guy at a certain price. I sell him 100 pounds. I make 300. I make 30,000. I make 300 a pound. I make 30,000. He takes that 100 pounds and he sells it. He makes 200 a pound. He makes 20,000. That 100 pounds goes to these. Now it gets broken down over it. Now they start making money. So it's not like I'm teaching them. I'm not like, we're just in business together. Now we're in the sports business.
I see.
I got 150 guys betting with me. Mm-hmm. I got 3 partners. We won 100,000 that week. Well, we all made 33,000 each. Okay. The next week we blow 30,000, comes out we keep a bankroll. So It comes out of that. So, you got the number business, you got the Shylock business, you got the Joker poker vending businesses.
Shylock you got legitimate for people that don't know
is loan shark. It's like going to bank and borrow money.
Right. Okay. So this is something I want to harp on for another second or two, because I'm trying to get the average person to really understand the mentality of a mobster, right? Because if a person knew that someone is out to potentially kill them, they'd shit their pants. They would never get out of their house, right?
Right.
Do you think the mentality of not ever being able to be killed, untouchable, or how you felt, right? Where you were just like, if it happens, it happens, whatever. I don't think it's going to happen, but if it happens, whatever. That's the mentality that got Al Bruno killed, Paul Castellano killed. Is that the mentality?
Sure. You don't think, Bruno didn't think he was going to get killed. Well, Bruno got told he was going to get killed. Bruno got told and warned there's a hit out on him.
But they just never take these seriously?
Yeah, we don't. We want to. You go on the offense. Like, you want to know who did it. And then you start plotting like, oh, it could be him. I'm going to kill him. It could be him. I'm going to kill them. Like in my case, I really didn't know who put it out on me 100%. But I was actively hunting pretty much a few people. So it had to be one of them. So I was going to kill the guy that was going to supposedly want to kill me anyways. I'm actively hunting them. I'm actively making money. I'm actively raising a family. I'm actively living a great life.
Yeah.
So it's like you're doing all that things at the same time. Bruno was very savvy. Bruno was carrying a gun at the end. He got told. He was wearing a bulletproof vest at times. There's precautions you can take. Those two are ones right there. Bulletproof vest. He wasn't wearing it that night, but bulletproof vest, carrying a gun, having guys around you, bodyguards. Mm-hmm. You can take precautions, especially when it's a time for war.
Yeah.
there's precautions you can take, but the best precaution is go on offense and kill your enemies. That's the best.
Did anybody ever succeed being on the defensive?
Nah, I don't think, if you're a mobster, pretty much every guy that goes into that life is a killer. Okay, so they're not going to go into hiding.
Every made man is a killer?
Yeah, back then you had to kill to get in. Now, I'm not saying everyone did. There's certain exemptions for certain individuals that didn't have to do that. But, I had to get in. That was a rule going in, right, that even as a young kid, I knew, talking to my, like my father even, he goes, yeah, you don't want to, to be a part of that, you got to kill somebody to get in. So at a young kid, I always said, could I kill somebody to be a part of that?
Okay, so according to Sammy the Bull, he says that if you're affiliated with a hit in any way, shape, or form, so if you're the driver, if you're the lookout person, if you're even in the room and you're part of the crew with the person that they want to kill, but you're just sitting in that chair right there, your back's face towards the wall, just to distract the guy, you're a part of the hit. It counts as a hit under your belt the same way as the person who pulled the actual trigger and killed that person.
Absolutely.
You agree with that?
And if the government comes and indict you, you're going to get indicted for murder.
Is that why you guys count it as a hit under your belt?
Sure,
because you get punished the same way?
Because if you kill, if the boss tells you to kill, all right, so you're going to have one guy that's going to have to maybe set the guy up. They leave the body there. Those two guys leave. Two other guys come and get rid of the body. Same thing. They're part of the hit. They get rid of the body, go bury him somewhere. Mm-hmm. Now, so you got four guys involved in the hit. There might be a driver in the car for the two guys that came in to get rid of the body. He's part of the hit. Anybody that has knowledge of the hit and helps in some sort of way counts as being a hit. There's just certain guys that are the trigger guys, mm-hmm, and more, trigger, happy and,
right,
doing the actual deed, but it doesn't matter.
So you were actually supposed to be on the hit to kill Al Bruno, is that correct?
At a later point, I got ordered to help in the assassination of Al Bruno.
Was there any sense of loyalty that washed over you in that moment where you were thinking to yourself, I can't do this? Because, for example, your uncle was in the Mafia, and he got a similar order to kill his best friend. But instead, he took his own life because he couldn't bear the weight of killing his own friend.
Right. And it's not that my uncle was, I joke with my mother because that was her godfather, but he hung around with Whitey Tropiano, who they say was in Murder Inc. and killed dozens and dozens of people. So my uncle was definitely a killer, and hanging around with those type of individuals back then, 40s, 50s, 60s, killing all them people. The weight that came over him, not that he wasn't capable of killing, it's just he was close to that guy and didn't want to set him up. And they wanted him to set him up, not actually kill him, but set him up. And it's, and it's hard to set your friend up, I guess,
yeah,
and this and that. Even though you have really no friends, but back then I could see you have more of a bond with somebody back in the 40s, 50s, 60s, maybe. Well, with me, I was viciously hunting down, trying to murder a faction in Springfield in our area.
Because was this the one where they attacked your family's house?
Yeah, my house.
Yeah, they shot up your house.
So I was going to kill them. So nothing else mattered to me at that point. Mm-hmm. So when the Bruno murder happened, first of all, I didn't get the order. And second of all, I didn't care because I never got the order. And I didn't think it was going to happen because the guy they told, Felix Tranghese, I knew wasn't capable, didn't have a crew to kill Bruno. Then I get told to help in the murder plot. Now I know, okay, but still I wasn't told directly at first, so I can still drag my feet with this. And then the other thing is I'm still trying to kill this faction over here. So that's my bloodlust, is to kill them, not to kill Bruno. I was dragging my feet with it. A few weeks go by, I get called down to New York again, and they really want to see this guy get killed. They had their reasons. In New York, greed, take over our area.
He was a very aggressive man.
The boss out there, Artie Nigro, who had this informant around him, John Bologna, who destroyed our area.
Is that like the guy with the big beard?
Beard, yeah.
You said that was the worst person I ever had.
Worst person, yep. So that's
an informant, wasn't he?
He was an informant the whole time.
Yeah.
And I asked to kill him, and they wouldn't let me. I asked Artie, who was the boss, who made me, when I got made me, I asked permission to kill him, and he protected him.
It's like a Donnie Brasco story.
Yeah, well, only he wasn't an FBI agent. He was an informant.
Yeah, it was just a snitch.
Yeah, and he was causing all the trouble with us. He was causing all the infighting. And then secondly, they robbed Bruno for $250,000 over a cigarette deal. Then there was other guys that owed money that were in Ray Ruggiero was a captain in Florida for the Genovese family. There was guys that were with Ray that were borrowing money off of Bruno. Ray was getting an end. They didn't want to pay Bruno the loan shark money back. So they had that reason, number one. So they were treating Bruno like a common sucker, and Bruno was a boss at this time.
I see.
You see? So So basically that's what was going on to get rid of Bruno. My heart wasn't in it. And when it started to get more serious and they wanted to see him dead for those reasons, because they wanted control over Massachusetts and Connecticut. That's what the goal was. And they never had it. Everybody says, oh, money went down to New York. Money never went down to New York. Nobody gave money to New York until Bruno became boss. And Bruno was only giving them money because they were started to do extortions, which they never did. So when the extortions came, that's when you started Bruno. Bruno was giving money. Bruno started giving money down to New York. That's when it started. After 2002-ish, right around there. So that's pretty much the gist of why the orders came in to get rid of him. Well, that's the main thing. But then they still weren't going to be able to get rid of him. They were just going to demote him as a soldier, from a boss to a soldier, until a 302 came out with Bruno talking to an FBI agent. So that's the gist of why Bruno got killed. But did I feel, some sort of me? Yeah, I didn't feel good about that whole thing with Bruno. I went to his house to try to tell him in a roundabout way to go to Florida, because he had just gotten his eyes done. He had LASIK surgery where they did so you don't have to wear glasses.
Yeah.
And
you go blind for a couple of days.
Yeah, well, he had to be in the house, for a few days after that. So I actually went to his house, and I was going to tell him, say, Bruno, there's a lot of shit going on here. Why don't you go to Florida? It's a lot of, heat. Not telling him why, because I couldn't.
What does he say to you?
He wasn't there. I went and knocked on the door.
That's right.
And his wife answered, and Anna, and I said, is he home? And she said, no. It's the first day he left. He left with, I think it was Fitzy was tribing him. And so, it wasn't anything that hit. And if I could go back, obviously it's easier to say, like, you can't go to war with the New York bosses, other than that. But thinking of other scenarios, I would have killed the guy Bologna, which I asked permission to do.
How did you know that he was a rat but no one else could see it? Why did they let him slide, but you knew that he was an informant?
Everybody knew. So that's the thing. Everybody knew. So
why keep him around?
Artie Nigro. Artie Nigro was a soldier, and he ended up becoming boss because this guy Ernie Muscarella was going to prison. So Ernie wanted Artie there. The other bosses didn't want Artie there, but Ernie got the approval to put Artie there while he was going to prison for 5 years. So Artie becomes boss. He's got this guy, John Bologna. We call him JB. He's the guy with the beard. Mm-hmm. I'm in New York, early 2000s. The boss of the Gambinos pulls up. We get in his car, me and Artie. And they says, what's JB doing here? He was originally around the Gambinos, this John Bologna. And he used to drive a notorious gangster, Jimmy Brown Fiala. He used to drive Jimmy Brown around, who was big in the garbage business, big powerhouse Genovese captain, right? The Gambino guy asked, what's he doing here? And he's no good. He's an informant. We chased him. When you get chased for being an informant, the next step is to kill you. But they never killed him. When I got out of the car, I asked Artie, what was that all about? He said, don't pay no attention. They're jealous. He's around me now. Mm-hmm. So you just take it like that. Everyone, at some point or other, he's a rat, he's an informant, he's this, he's that, whatever. He's in New York. I'm not thinking anything of it. Anthony Arillotta, Beaver, they called him. They tell us the guy that's coming up in your area with the beard is an informant. We got good sources, good word. And when, people do have good sources. A friend of a friend who's in law enforcement, could be in New York, could be in, our area, Massachusetts. Everyone's got, it could be a state organized crime who's got a brother who's friends with a guy who's friends with one of our guys, said, hey, that guy, so things don't have to be corrupt. That's why Joey Bazil was supposed to go on the hit with me in New York, and he ran away. And he said, take me off the list. Because they got word that this guy, John Bologna, was an informant. There was all kinds of heat going on, and he ran away. And that's why he got saved, and he's out on the streets today. Never went to prison.
I'm going to read you a quote. We have many rich experiences that we do not analyze enough. Events in life mean nothing if you do not reflect on them in a deep way. That's from Robert Greene. He wrote the 48 Laws of Power.
Yeah. Good book.
Fantastic book.
Great book.
When you committed a crime, did you deeply reflect on it? It could have been anything. Drug dealing, the things that we will get into further down the line, like everything we discussed. When you committed a crime, did you deeply reflect on it, as the quote says, or no? Was it just like taking a piss? You're just doing what you got to do.
Yeah.
You didn't think much of it.
No, I never thought nothing of it. I moved on. I just, next day, back on the streets, making money, and who can I get to expand my businesses?
Do you think that if you just took time to sit back and really reflect on what you were doing, you might have had a change of heart about that lifestyle, or no?
No. Once you, at that point in our era, once you're in that point, you're in too deep. It's hard. Like the kid, like I said, the kid Joey that ran away.
Yeah.
He was going to get killed. There's no running away. It's just that everything that happened, indictments came, and that's the only reason he never got killed. Yeah. But he was going to get killed. He was told to go on a hit, and he didn't go. So, there was going to be a time where he got killed. It's just we all got arrested, and he got lucky.
Yeah.
I know what I could have done a lot differently now, same type of life, what I would have done differently now. But everyone can say that in life, what they would have done differently.
Yeah, hindsight's 20/20, right?
Yeah.
So you got made in 2003 by the Genovese family in New York.
Right.
And I want to go through that process, but you said it yourself. You have to kill someone in order to become a made man at that time. Walk me through that hit that you were sent on.
So, as the time that Bruno was going to be taken down from a boss to a soldier, and that they were robbing him and making a sucker out of him, that's when Artie wanted to kind of like cultivate a little crew in our area that was going to be directly with him, that were going to be directly with him and loyal to him. And the only way that you could do that and solidify that is do a murder for him. So that's what happened. I was called down to New York, and he, along with John Bologna, the informant, told me that they want me to kill this Union guy, and specifically told me to use these other two guys, Reno Sarabalo and Joey Bazil, and then the three of us were going to get made.
I see.
Under Artie.
Okay, I got you.
When I go back and tell Joey and Reno, that's when Joey says, no, I don't want nothing to do with this. And he runs away. Take me off the list. And he runs away.
Right.
Hindsight, he did the right thing. But in hindsight, he didn't, he's lucky it turned out the way it did, because he was going to get killed.
Mm-hmm.
So, Reno, different story. Reno, I liked Reno. Reno was just, there was a lot of confusion going on and everything. Plus, I had the two Greek brothers that were capable of murder. So, I went back to Artie and I told him, listen, Joey ran away. Artie was hot. We'll deal with him later. What about Reno? Reno's just, I don't need Reno. I got the two guys. We don't need three. We don't need another guy. I can just use the two brothers. Mm-hmm. He goes, all right. But he did want to use Reno because he wanted to make, like I said, he wanted to cultivate a little crew. But he only needed me because I had the biggest crew there was. So he brings us to where the guy lives, shows us the car. Mm-hmm. Artie, the boss, does this with the informant, John Bologna, shows me. I go back, I tell my the two Greeks, we're going to go down. We go down and do a dry run on the place. We see where the guy parks his car, and we see where he lives, just to get a familiar with the area. And as we're doing that, sure enough, he comes out as we're doing the dry run.
Mm-hmm.
And
could have got him right there.
Oh yeah, it was like you couldn't ask for a better setup. It was like we were driving down the street, and here he is walking to his car, and he was like, I go, there he is right there. And but we didn't have guns on us, so we were just going down to look at the place. And then we go down, I think the next day or the day after, and we're sitting in the car on the street, And I told them to put the guns underneath our car in case the cops came. They don't have guns in the car. What are you guys doing here parked here?
Mm-hmm.
You know. Plus, we had to do a lot of planning. We had to steal license plates, put them on the car. Connecticut license plates. Then we had to get a car, and then we had to, do all kind. We had to get the guns, and so we got the guns out of the car. He doesn't come out that day. So now we go back. This time I tell Freddie, go down with the guns ahead of time to this hotel in Portchester. And we'll pick you up there the next morning. So the guns are already here. Because it's a big risk traveling with silencers. It's a big crime. You had to switch cars up all around, leave our phones at home, do all that type of stuff so you couldn't triangle where our cellular phones were if it ever came out. You leave your phone at home,
Mm-hmm.
you go in a different car, make sure there's no GPSs because they put GPS tracking devices in your car and all that stuff. I tell Freddie to park down the street. Me and Ty are going to be the shooters. And we sit on a bench and directly diagonal that way, we're waiting for the guy to come out. And eventually, he comes out, we walk up and we shoot him. He got shot at, I believe it was 9 times.
Right.
Yeah.
So what's the feeling in your stomach, your gut, your soul, your heart after you thought you just killed a man by shooting him 9 times? What's going on through your head in that moment?
Just to get away with it. Make sure we got out of there. We know we had to leave. Get rid of the plates immediately. Throw the plates over this little marsh. Get rid of took the magnet plates off. Threw them over the marsh. We had gloves. Threw them over the marsh. The gloves we were cutting up on the way, driving, cutting them up and throwing them out the window. Oh, the guns we threw over the marsh.
Yeah.
And just to get out of there. That was my thoughts.
The reason I say thought you killed a man because he actually ended up surviving.
Yeah.
Which is crazy. So was it a sigh of relief for you knowing that, he was an innocent man for corrupting the union, but innocent in terms of just, I don't know, he wouldn't be considered a civilian, would he?
No, he's not considered a civilian, but, he was an organized crime associate. They controlled the unions. So if you were part of the union, you were part of the mob. He wasn't considered a dangerous killer, a made guy type, but you're an associate. And if you mess up, the same rules apply to you. And so that's what happened with him. And I got an order. So there was nothing. If I don't do that, like I said, back then, people don't realize what it was like. If you don't do that, you end up dead.
Genevise's family still looked at you as someone who was capable of taking out a crime. So they're like, okay, he didn't die, but we'll still make him because he did what we said to do and you executed it. He just survived.
They loved us. They loved me and my crew.
Yeah.
They loved us after that hit. You got to understand, every shot hit him from here up. He wasn't hitting his ankles. He was hit from his chest up.
Right.
9 shots. In fact, one of the bullets is still in his head. 1 or 2.
He's still alive today?
Yeah. He came on a show.
He's not mad at you?
And he's talking, not with me, but he came on a show that was done.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
And he was, he described exactly, it's Up Against the Mob, it's called. And he actually talks where he describes the whole thing. He said he pretended he was dead so we would leave. He just laid there and didn't move. And then once we left, he went to his wife's, his apartment, and he was trying to call his phone, but he couldn't. He didn't have his phone. He was yelling to his wife, and as he was yelling to her, she seen him, so she was able to call the ambulance. But then he passed out there, and then they rushed him to the hospital, and he was dead. Because the next day I got word that he was dead.
Right.
And then they saved him, and yeah.
Is it a sigh of relief now, looking back at it, that you're no longer in that life, that this man did end up dying from events?
Yeah. I didn't know him, and it's, looking back, that's the one thing I regret all of it, is the violence with all that. Like I said, I would have still lived my same life the same way, making millions of dollars. It's hard back then to make the millions and not get involved in the murder part the way, because at that era, today you can do it, but in that era, it was hard to walk away, just clean walk away when you're in that deep. A mafia guy just can't walk away.
No.
You know too much. You've been involved in too much. They're not going to just let you live your life. That's why everyone that did walk away back then, there was threats on their life.
Would you still be considered a made man today?
Yeah, you're always considered a made guy until you're dead. Obviously I'm not going to have that respect and power that I had carrying in that, but once you're a made officially until you're dead, you're still on the records with the family as being a made guy.
You said that it was divine intervention that this man survived 9 shots.
Yeah.
Do you believe in God?
Yeah.
Would you say you're a Christian?
I believe in a higher power. I believe in, the universal. I believe in God. I believe in, being what you put out is what you get back. Positive, you get positive. Negative, you get negative. I believe there is a higher power, definitely a God. I believe Jesus, existed, and but I believe in God. When I talk to a higher power, I talk to the universe. I talk to God.
Do you believe in heaven and hell?
Our bodies are just containers, and we're souls inside, and we don't ever die. We're moving on to something else. So, sort of something like that. And, CIA documents came out with that sort of explanation, exact explanation, and they don't want it to be, it's top secret, and it says religion on it. And that's pretty much what's in it. Part of it is that we're containers for souls within us.
Yeah.
This is just, the body is just, nothing. We leave the body, where do we go? We're not dead. That soul inside of us is going somewhere. So wherever it goes, I don't know. But it's going somewhere. Based on this life that you lived, hopefully for me, I'm not going backwards and getting the repercussions of the bad things I did in this life.
Most mafia guys are Catholics or Christians at the very least. You can see the depictions of them. They have a gold chain around their neck. They have a gold crucifix cross. They baptize their kids on Sundays, but then on Mondays, they're loan sharking. They're pulling triggers. So was it an act in a way to be like this religious person? They just looked at it as like a piece of jewelry around their neck. Was it just tradition at that point to be a Christian? And there was just something by word and mouth, but they didn't really think of it too much. Like, how was your experience around mob guys with that were quote unquote Christians?
People are going to be shocked, but the majority of the mob guys are great men, great family men, great honorable, great family men. It's just they got involved in this treacherous life and had to be involved in treacherous deeds and acts. You're going to have them few that are just mad hatters wanting to kill everyone. And, guys like DeMeo, but he still loved his kids. He still loved his family. He loved his son. He loved, he still had a family life. Now when it came to the mafia world, he'd kill you, cut you up, and do whatever, but he loved his family. Pablo Escobar, worried to death about his kids and his family, but still murdered thousands of people. El Chapo, same thing, murderous cartel guys, but they still love and everything. And the majority of the mafia guys, they got good hearts. They help a lot. Bruno helped a lot of people, give people opportunities, give them money if they needed it, help foundations. But the life that we're in, you get looked at as you're animals and you're these low life type beings because we kill each other and we act violently towards the group that we're involved in.
The way that I understood it was that everyone in the mafia, there's an agreement with each other that you only kill each other because that's the business that you're in. You don't go for civilians. You don't go for people who aren't in this business because that's just the contract that you sign. So at the end of the day, they look at it as just purely business. It's part of the job. Like a soldier goes out and does his job for his country. You guys were looking at it as doing it for your family, right?
Sure, it's the same thing.
But do you think that's justification to commit evil?
That's the rules. That's an organization that we're involved in. Do you think it's justification for the military to go to another country and kill them?
No, I think they're a mob too.
Yeah, so you're going to that country. We're called freedom fighters. They're called terrorists. But in their country, they're called freedom fighters, and we're the terrorists. So it all depends on what you're involved in. We were involved in an organization. Now, if you told a mobster to go kill a child or a woman, something like that, it's not going to happen. Blow up a car with kids in it, it's not going to happen. Italy, they might do that, but in the United States, it wasn't. There wasn't none of that.
Why were they more vicious in Italy? I always hear that
vicious animals all live in close. And you can't get at them. You got to get their families. Like square radius with all these mafia guys in there. the mafia guys will go into hiding, and so they have to continue the business. So they use their wife and their kids to get involved, and next thing you know, their wife and kids, and now they're involved, and so they kill everybody.
It's crazy. During the making process, let's go back to it a bit. They actually made you strip naked, I believe, before
my boxers.
Oh, to your boxers, just to check that you had a wire on you, right?
Basically, that was the reason why. But yeah.
So was that typical of every person that ever got made, that they had a strip? It was just a Genovese family.
Yeah. Well, I don't know what they did in other ones, but in my ceremony, there was 4 of us that got made that day.
Yeah.
Yeah. They told us to. They made 2 of us at a time, and they told us to strip to your boxers and gave us a bathroom. And before you went into the room and got your finger pricked.
So that was just, you knew that was going to be the process?
Yeah, they were more cautious than any other family too. They stopped dealing with the other families at this point. The Bonanos just went through everyone was turning government witness, and the Bonanos, the Gambinos were getting broken down. The other family, Columbos, were in disarray, Lucchese. So They didn't trust nobody. They didn't pass around the names like they usually do. Right. Usually they pass around names. They didn't do that. They trace your bloodlines back. They know everything that there is. But just for that maybe chance that a guy is trying to wiretap an induction ceremony, that's probably why they did that.
Those 4 other guys that you got made with, are they alive today?
I believe 2 of them are. I don't know the third guy. The third guy, when he got made that day, he was like in his 60s. So you're talking like 20-something years ago. And I never knew him. So he could be alive.
When you were entering in this life, your dad, we talked about in the beginning, don't enter this life, you either end up dead, handcuffs. You see the people around you. What made you think that your ending would have been different than everyone else, whoever was in the Mafia? Or did you think that you would end up that way? Did you just accept it?
I wanted my ending. My goal was, once I got in and I knew once you murder, it's over. So now it's your whole life changes. Instead of going for the rackets I went away with before for just making money, you're going to get probation, couple years, 3 years. There's no violence, right? You'll accept that. I make 10 million. I go away for 2 years. I think everybody would accept that. But once the violence happens, it changes everything. So now you become a target. And that target is everyone else gets a free pass to get you. And so they're going to, and then not only that, I had New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, and Mass all looking to put me and my crew away. So my goal was to try to weather through this hard time of heat by law enforcement and go legitimate, get involved in all the legitimate industries, get off because they always get you for sports gambling, RICO charge, they put you away for a couple years, right. Those 2-3 years here, then there, and you come out, you're on probation, and it's like, so I was going to get involved in all like the construction, the garbage, the food industry, the restaurants, the strip clubs, and we had all those under our control. And I was going to, make a crew underneath me, have like certain guys running certain street things, but pretty much to be a CEO of like a major company, those type of, that's my goal. That's where I was trying to push it as. And I just didn't have the chance. I kept getting indicted. I got 4 indictments from 2003 to 2007. And then I got indicted again in 2010, and that was it. So I never had the chance to do that. I had major real estate deals, in the $100 million real estate deal. I had companies I was getting involved in with a tire business for tow trucks. I was trying to get involved in all the legitimate parts of that. And then just sort of like what they're doing in New York today, Barney Belomo and those guys.
I was going to ask you about them.
Yeah, they just step back. They put front guys in because they don't need that money. They're already worth $100 million. They don't want to risk getting those 3-5 year sentences again.
Yeah.
They put somebody else up. That's why they're not murdering anymore. They don't want those type of RICO cases anymore because guys flip and everything like that.
So you actually said something interesting. You said that the modern day mafia is still around. They're still kicking, but they're doing more legitimate things. So what, are they really mafia or are they entrepreneurs with anger issues?
No, they're a organization that's smart now. if you have a CEO, you're a legitimate billion-dollar company, and you are a vice president, and you mess up, and they say, you know what, they kick you out of that company now. You're banished. Not only are you banished from this company, but you're banished from all our other major companies that exist. You know, whether it's whatever, other billion-dollar companies. Now, what are you going to do? Right? They didn't kill you, but they cut off your earnings power. And that's what the mafia can do going forward. Instead of killing you, they can banish you and throw you out of that life, where you can't go in, you're not welcome in all of they own, like, say, New York. A lot of wise guys are silent partners or own restaurants, nightclubs, strip clubs. You're not welcome there no more. They tell you, hey, you're not welcome here no more. You know, it's doing business on the streets. We can't do business with you no more. So it becomes like a secret society still, only they're smart now. They're not all just gonna, because nobody wants to go to prison. Nobody at the end wants to watch their kids grow up while they're in prison. Nobody wants to, you know, live that life, go through all you did and end up dying in prison. So these guys are smart today and they're stepping back so they don't have to have that.
They don't kill people anymore. They've adapted to the times. Do you think that if the mobsters, when Rico first rolled out with Giuliani, that they would have been just as successful back then, or was the culture too different where you had to kill back then, you don't have to kill now?
You know, if they could have had like, you know, some insight up to where it was going to go, and they did that back in like the 80s, they would have never been able to dismantle the mafia, right? Because they were that powerful. I mean, they really controlled the unions. But see, not only did they, you know, stop with the, you know, the RICO allowed them to bust up the unions and, you know, bust up the grip on them and bust up the waste management was just as lucrative as the cocaine industry.
Yeah.
You know, so they busted that up. They busted the fish industry. You know, that was just as lucrative. All these legitimate, the garment industry, all these legitimate industries brought in, you know, tens of millions of dollars a year, because they had an organization that you'll never see duplicated ever again.
No.
You know, all that same stuff is still existing today. Corruption, all exists.
Do they still kill? Like at a minimum?
Not the mafia,
or not,
but
not at all.
But the mafia, but the people involved in it are still killing. Look at all the, you know, in the world, these mysterious deaths that happen. That's the big mafia. That's really what's going on. The way they killed, you know, above and beyond the mafia. The mafia is small potatoes now compared to where you see the world is going. But, you know, back then the mafia was an entity that was a very powerful one. Mm-hmm. And, you know, going back to when, you know, they used the mafia, just like they use the cartels, they form organizations within organizations. They form the Zetas to fight against the cartels. The next thing you know, the Zetas become a powerful cartel themselves. Bin Laden, he was a CIA operative. They formed him to fight against the Russians back then. 300 million they funded him, and this and that. He was Saddam Hussein was a CIA operative.
Yeah, we funded him during the Iraq War.
The Iran-Iraq War. You fund them.
We created a monster.
You're right, and then next thing you know, they become the bad guys, and then they're on the list to take down and this and this. Right. They did the same thing with the mafia back in when Castro was there. They used the mafia to try to assassinate Castro, even though they had their people in place, just like they used them with Kennedy, they, you know, as the front guys, you know, they also used them in World War II to get into Italy to fight Mussolini and to protect our docks at that time too. And I don't know if it was World War I or I think it was II.
Hold that thought real quick, Anthony. I don't always smoke cigars. That's a lie, I do. But when I do, I smoke House of Sticks. You have to be 18 or 21 in some places to smoke tobacco, so viewer discretion is advised. What I really like about the Sticks cigar Cade Beau 7-inch Salamoon is the wrap. It has a very nice sweet taste to it. It has a nice draw. This is actually a very nice cigar for a casual smoker, a person who likes premium hand-rolled cigars. So if you're in the market for cigars, visit houseofsticks.com. They're your go-to.
All right. Oh, this is beautiful. Oh, this is gorgeous. I have to call my brother. He's gonna love this news. Moved in right next to him. Fire.
man.
Bro, crazy news. Just closed on the house I was telling you about.
You did? Congratulations.
I know I didn't tell you, but you're not going to believe where it is. I moved in right next door. This is how it was, like we were kids running it.
Nope. Hell no.
I think it dropped.
Yeah, John. I need to sell my house. Yeah, no, I understand we just closed escrow. No, I understand that I've been in the house only for 10 days. I need to sell right now. No, I understand I'm going to have to pay extremely high capital gains tax. John, I need to sell my house. You don't understand. I need to sell my house. I can't live next to this guy, John. You don't understand. Get me out of here, John. I've been living with this guy for 25 years. You don't understand what it means to live with this guy, John. You don't understand what it means. Sell my house. I don't care that we're selling at a loss. Put Rita on the phone. Rita. Thank God. Rita, listen to me.
Nice house.
Joseph's signature line. I know exactly who I can use this on. Hey, Tom. It's right here. Joseph's signature line box comes with the following. The volumizing powder aids in protecting the melanin in the hair, allowing the hair to retain its natural color and prevent premature aging. Joseph's signature line beard oil is essential to every man's morning routine as a conditioner, moisturizer, and softener to tame the most unmanageable hair. The beard pencil makes beard shaping easy. Easily define style and enhance eyebrows or beard shapes to give the natural appearance you're looking for. The Beard Balm comes in 2 flavors, sage mint or tropical vanilla mango, that keeps your beard looking rich by locking in the moisture from all your natural oils. And it also comes with a light, thin razor that allows lining up your beard for improved maneuvering, precision lines, and extra detailing. Unclog and reduce pores, remove blackheads, and control oil with Jacob Joseph's Charcoal Nose Strips. All can be found at josephsignaturesline.com. I noticed that your beard is a little dry, so we're gonna put some nice beard oil on you. A little bit there. Just some powder, a little bit more. But I know that your nose gets a little bit, you'll be alright. You're fine. Alright? Good? And some beard balm just to finish it up. A lot of it. Just a lot. Oh, there goes that. Ooh, alright. Oh, nice little beard balm. See, now you look like you're developed.
What? Was I missing a couple?
Watch out. Oh my god, this actually works pretty fine. Look at the beard. Your beard. This actually works pretty good.
Who was it?
Wait. I don't know. I don't think those
pretty big. Oh, okay. I'm gonna cheese exactly like this.
Alright, and lastly, let me line you up real quick.
No.
Introducing Salon Blissful's very own product, the Blemish Shield. I even used this product to get ready to shoot this ad by getting rid of irritation, red spots, and blemishes by applying a small patch that goes on your face to suck up all of the gunk and erase all of the pimples and extractions that you need to look good before you get on camera or go out in public. They're super easy to apply. You can take them on the go. Say goodbye to redness, irritation, and unwanted spots, and order Blemish Shield today from Salon Blissful. Link in the descriptions. New packages are coming, so package design may vary. The mob tried to get Trump to flip over and over and over back in the day, but he was the one guy that they couldn't get.
Right.
Have you heard anything about that? Or is that actually...
Well, listen, what Donald Trump had to go through back in the that era, you couldn't do anything in New York in construction, cement, any of that stuff without the mob dealing with the mob. So he was dealing with lions and tigers. So he had to, maneuver all that. But you do a legitimate business. Like, you want this done, you do a pay, kickback, you pay them their due, whatever, but he wasn't corrupt. What they try to do is get him to do business with them, to be part of the scheme and everything, and he wanted to do it.
The main reason I was asking about the modern mafia and the killing is that if you don't have the killing, there's no fear. So does anyone fear them nowadays?
Right. That's exactly what it is. So, it's a double-edged sword. If you don't kill, you don't get those big RICO cases, and you don't get hit with those big indictments and everything. But if you don't kill, you lose the fear factor.
Yeah.
Where people will, not obey you like they would, knowing that you'll put a bullet in their head, or there's a chance of them getting killed. So yeah, it's that's why it's pretty much not as powerful as it was. The reason I say, and it's not going to ever be as powerful as it was, but they can still exist and not be a killing organization. They can still be a networking organization where they can still make lots of money. Mm-hmm. It's just that they're Google or Amazon or all these big companies do it. You fire people, or you
right.
take people. You
act like a business.
You act like a business, right?
So are they bigger now than they were back then, or do you think that they're still small compared to the prime of the mafia days in terms of size, members?
Yeah, back in the days, don't forget the mafia was, country nationwide. Mm-hmm. You had families in L.A., St. Louis, Denver, Kansas City, Milwaukee, Chicago, all the way up everywhere. Now they don't exist outside of New York. They're small factions. Boston's got they're all doing the same tactics. Legitimate businesses, adapting to the times, don't kill anybody, try to last on the streets.
Yeah.
The ones that did kill in the past are hoping that those murders don't come back to haunt them.
Right.
And live happily ever after.
But do you think that they're smaller now than they were back then, or like numbers wise, the people that are in the life?
I think the way the internet is, I think they can grow. Well, again, are they going to, how do you substantiate making a guy into the mafia today? It's harder to get full-blooded Italian, so you're going to have to get other ethnicities involved in that, because it gets watered down.
Or mafia is Italian.
So it's like, it'll pretty much.
All right,
like
so
that.
They're still around, but they're just a shadow of their former selves.
Yeah.
Yeah, got you. So back in its prime, though, so I'm Assyrian, okay? And in the Assyrian culture, there's many different villages back in our old country in the Middle East. You got a village in the mountains, you got a village in the valleys, and each of them have their own stereotypes. One of them are apple eaters, the ones are featherheads. Right. They all got their things. Some of them talk funny. Right. Some of them are wussies. Yeah. So being associated with a certain family, the Colombos, Gambinos, Patriarchas, Genovese, did they have their own stereotypes? Like if you were part of the Genovese family, you were known for being good at making money, let's say. Was that type of stereotype there with the mafia families or not?
Not with the different families.
Yeah.
Because at the end, the Patriarchas, powerful family. Raymond Sr., powerful guy. All, back then you had powerful families, and they all did the same rackets, and they all worked together. But you would have, like you're from Syria, like in Italy, you would have that. Assyria, yeah. So in Italy, you would have that. Different dialects, the way people talk. Like you said, these are farmers, these are, and you would have the same thing, territories, like say New York. Queens don't like Brooklyn don't like Manhattan don't like the Bronx, and you can go to prison, these guys are this, these guys are that, these guys then the Boston guys are this, and then the Philly guys are that, and then there's guys from Chicago are that. So you have territory wise, they do that type of stuff, but not families.
I got you. Okay, that makes sense. So was it looked down upon for a person to start in one family and then go on to another family, or was that kind of accepted?
It doesn't happen a lot, but it can, you can get transferred from one family to another. I think Sammy the Bull was started with the Colombos. He went to the Gambinos. That does happen, especially in New York. You could have, and so many, areas that New York, controlled, that you would see a lot. Maybe a guy started with, as an associate of the Bananos, and he ended up going over to the Genovese. Things like that could happen. But outside of there, you get to like our areas, it's strictly Genovese. And so anybody from Springfield really is going to be, if they get involved in the mafia, is going to be involved with the Genovese family. Boston, Providence, you're going to be involved in the Patriarchas. Okay. You're not going to have a kid growing up in Providence, Rhode Island, and then get made in the Gambinos.
Right, it's just
unless the way them things can happen is if you go to prison and you're around, say, a boss in federal prison, you're around a boss. Mm-hmm. He takes a liking to you. He's getting out. He wants you to come with him. right? You're not on record with anybody, let's say, or say you were. He's going to go to the boss, say the Patriarchas. He's going to ask permission to get you released to him with his family. So unless it's things like that.
The Barrio,
Yeah.
Barney Bellomo. He's the head of the Genovese family today. What are your thoughts on him?
So they say he's the head, but I would say he's doing what? There's a lot of powerhouses. I don't know if Danny Leo's still alive, Ernie Muscarella, Barney. I heard Larry Dentico's still alive. I don't know if he just died or he's still alive, but you got a lot of powerhouses in the Genovese family. None of them are going to put their head on out there as being the boss. So at the end, they are going to be so insulated that they're going to put layers, but not only that, they're going to put street bosses there. And they're going to say, I don't want to know nothing. Unless they're going to say no murders. And if there's no murders, run business as usual. Yeah. If Barney's making, $20 million a year in construction, what's he want to be bothered with some beef that's going on, over here where he has a risk of getting involved in some RICO case?
So then why would a person accept the role of like a captain or like a muscle soldier if they know that they're taking on more of the heat essentially versus the bosses in the shadows?
So back then, getting that, when you rise, it's just like in anything, you get more power. So you get more access to the money, now you got control of soldiers and then their associates, you're a captain. When you're a boss, you got control of it all. So it was worth it back then. It's not worth it no more.
So it's just a title. It means nothing then.
Amongst the circles, it means something serious, being a boss. But they're so secretive today and so like insulated, like the bosses don't want to be bothered with anything that could put them back in prison. So they got too many things going on. They're involved in, like these top mobsters are involved in legitimate industries where they don't need the street stuff. And the legitimate industries, they're not going to go to prison for.
In the movie The Casino, there's a character named Artie Piscano, and he wrote everything down. It was from the Kansas faction.
Right.
Because he was feeling like he was getting nickel and dimed by all the bosses. So he wrote down every transaction, every dollar that came in, every dollar that came out. And it ended up actually biting him in the ass because when the feds found it, they used it to indict him and all of the bosses involved, right? Mm-hmm. But when someone goes away, you can start taking over their books, their numbers, all these things. And then you have so many people on the street. So like, for example, when Al Bruno goes, you take a piece of his business and now you're running his numbers. So you got so many things in your head. How do you stay organized with everything without writing it down to get yourself caught, basically? Was Artie at fault for writing all that stuff down, or was that a fatal mistake?
He wasn't at fault. There's ways that you can go about, hide it better if you're going to write it down. Make sure you hide that really good. Just like if you got money, you're going to hide your money good, hide that good.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, if you got like a loan shark list, 100 guys, you got 500,000 on the street. You need that written down somewhere. I would know who owes me money in my head. If I gave 100 guys money, I'm going to know the 100 guys. And then but I have somebody working for me who's collected and everything. And we do the work every week. So yeah, that's how they get, everything is written down. Like in the sports business, you got to go over the figures. So those are figures on papers. We used to meet every week and go over the numbers, the sports. So you have to look, okay, we got a list of people here. It's not like he was keeping it down and he was a fool. You need records to do your business. They
made him look
whether
stupid.
It's a computer or paperwork.
They made him look stupid in the movie for writing it down. That's why I bring it up. I just want to get your perspective on it.
Yeah, I mean, in my head, I know who owes me money. You'll know if you give somebody cash, you give them cash, right? So
was there anyone that slipped through the cracks though, where you forgot?
No, because now you go to prison, that disrupts everything. Like every time, like this last time I went to prison, I had 180,000 on the street, and that was nothing. But that's gone. So, but I'm not in that life no more. But I went to prison in the 90s. I came out, 40,000 was paid back, but 60,000 was borrowed out. Where'd the money go? So that's how you would catch that.
I do want to talk about the latest prison sentence. So you actually spent 13 years of your life total in prison.
Right.
So was going in and out of jail constantly ever exhausting, or did it get to the point where you would think like, they could get me today, because you wrote in your book something very profound, I think. You said you were laying one moment with your daughter in your arms, and then the next moment you were behind bars.
Right.
You know, so that was the final straw. That after that, you're like, 2017, you get out, you're done after that. But before that, 13 years total of your life, you're in and out of those cells. So did you ever have those thoughts before that final moment? And why did it have to go so far in order for you to realize that?
Right. So the thoughts those type of thoughts only happen when you're young and wild. You got no kids, right? You don't care. Yeah. But I still think you care when what changes everything is murder. Once you murder, it changes the dynamics of everything. When you go to bed at night, when you're making the money on the streets, you go to bed at night. If they come break my door down, arrest me, I'll get bailed out for sure. There's no murders, and I'll go to trial. I'm gonna have the best attorneys, and I'm gonna take the best possible way out. And if I have to go away for a couple years, I go away. But when you murder, that's when everything changes. That's when you're sleeping. I still sleep like a baby, but that's when if they come the next day, you might not ever get out of prison. And so, yeah, it came to me in 2005 when I went to prison from 2005 to 2008. I had to do 3.5 with the state, 29 months with the feds. Those thoughts came to me all the time. Say, listen, I love my kids to death. I love my family. I don't want to end up being in prison the rest of my life. But I wasn't facing nothing. I was doing my time, doing the 3.5. I picked up an indictment while I was in prison and went to trial and got found not guilty for that. So I would have got 20 years for that case. So yeah, but I was thinking but it's too late. I already murdered. I'm just trying to weather it out and get through that where I can get through it. But the murders would have never stopped. I could say what I wanted. The only way out is to get out officially, or it's never going to end that life.
You're obviously a family man, and you talk about your wife in specific moments of your life. So my question is, in regards to family, is that you never actually told your wife what you specifically did when you were married. No. You never said, I'm in the Mafia. You never said what you did on the streets, right? But she had an idea. I mean, they have to have an idea.
Of course.
So first, what would you tell them? Did they ever press you about it? Did you ever worry about that? Your kids are gonna be like, daddy's a murderer, daddy's a criminal. Did you ever worry about the kids' perspectives, the wife's perspectives, or no? It was not a second thought?
No, I never worried about it. I never had a chance to worry about it as my kids. Now I look back and my kids got my name and the notorious things that I've done. They have my name, my last name. So I worry about that. But yeah, I'm not. And
what do you mean by what you worry about? They have your last name, just like for their safety?
Not safety. If there's a lot of hate out there.
Yeah,
and a lot of the world can be nasty, and I don't want somebody because they're my last name.
The sins of the father.
To go to them, and they never knew anything. My wife never knew anything. I'm out all the time. What do you think I'm doing? You don't have to work. You got the brand new cars. Right. You can spend all the money you want. Take care of my kids. I got to go out and make the money. You think it grows on trees? So that's basically it.
Well, you said that the guys in the life that were around you, you didn't look at them as like friends or people that you could like pour your heart and soul into. You didn't trust them that way.
Right.
Just people you're making money with. Now your wife, she doesn't know specifically what you're doing, and you don't tell her. So you're basically by yourself in this world,
right?
In that life. So that must have been extremely lonely, man.
You do have I did have some really close people, like these older guys. This one guy, Dickie and Joe. I was really close with them. They used to handle my numbers business, and I did a lot with them. I was really close with Dickie. So when he ended up dying, they actually thought I killed him. They found him in the river, but it was because he died of a heart attack.
Oh, okay.
But they found him in the river with like $10,000 on him. But this guy was a great guy. I took that loss real bad when he died. So I was close with people out there. Like I said, I was close with Bruno.
Your father dies when you're in prison.
What
did that do to you?
That was the worst I've ever took as somebody, losing somebody, was my father. He was somebody I could go to and trust and talk. He was the one person that I could go to and talk to and tell him, even though I never discussed anything I did with him, any murders or anything like that. But I could if I felt like I'm going to get arrested or things are going to end quickly, I would go to him just to be around him, his presence and things. And plus I had business dealings with him. Like my house was in his name. I had other properties I did with him, money things with him, you know, as far as that. So when he died, it wasn't just the emotional loss of losing my father, but I had all kinds of, he was kind of like, not a business partner, but like I had, you know, guys when I was in prison dropping off money. My wife was going through so much money, I was having them drop some off at my father's.
You could completely trust him.
Yeah. So I took that loss. He died in prison while I was in prison in 2007. And yeah, that was hard.
Your mom still around?
Yeah.
How's your relationship with your mom?
Good. She lives with me.
Yeah?
Yeah. I saved all them by coming home.
What do you mean by saved all of them?
You know, I was away. They didn't have my son was, you know, in his mid-teens, and he was living with my mother. My sister was living with my mother, and my father died. They didn't have a male figure there, and everything was just, we had a successful store that was no longer existed. Everything was just falling apart. And they were at the midst of losing, my mother was going to lose the house. You know, my sister was in rough shape. My son didn't have a mentor to guide him. And so I think they all would have been in rough shape if I didn't come home.
You have daughters?
Yeah.
2? Mm-hmm. So 3 kids total?
Yep.
And so you are living, your son lives with you?
My son lives with me. My daughters live with my ex-wife, and I haven't seen them since 2010. But, you know, and that was another hard thing to deal with, because everything that I've done, I did to be back with them. You know, that's what comes first in my life. You know, even though I took an oath, even though I chose to be in the Mafia, even though at the end of the day, there ain't one person alive that means more to me than my kids. Right? I had a family, so that's, you know, I haven't seen them in 2010, but we're making good inroads as of we speak right now, and I think that's going to change soon.
The oath. You took
Yeah.
the oath. So they actually say in that oath, even if your wife is dying, your mother's dying, you still serve the family first before you serve your blood family.
Sure.
Did they really believe when they were saying that stuff, or was it just tradition?
Back then, I think they really believed it. If they told you to kill your brother, would you kill your brother? If your wife was giving birth, which happened to me, my wife, I got made the 12th, the 11th, my wife gave birth the 12th. So it was almost, you know, where I would have said, hey, I got to be in New York, and she's giving birth. Yeah. But it didn't. I was there when my wife had my daughter, my first daughter. So, yeah, if they tell you, I mean, come on, like if they tell you to kill you, well, you got to kill your brother. They don't tell your mother, but like, you know, if we tell you to kill your brother, would you kill for it? Would you kill your brother?
Depends. Did he piss me off this week? About it. I'm just kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, you know, would you do that? I mean, there's guys that have killed their brothers in the past, or somebody, you know, you might not have to kill your brother, but setting up your best friend, killing your best friend, they all had to do that. I pled guilty to having to kill my best friend. And that's just part of that life. He would have killed me, if I believe. He says he wouldn't, but, you know, in that life, they can all say what they want, but
right
back when it was powerful, you can't refuse an order.
David Headley.
Yeah.
Was a person in prison that you met who was a devout Muslim.
Yeah.
And you would spend time speaking philosophy with him, religion, you would debate, have conversations, pass the time, all that cool stuff. Did he spark an interest in you to consider religion more seriously, or was it just a person that you could pass the time with?
No, I was always religious. When I say religious, my aunt and my grandmother used to bring me to church as a young kid. My aunt used to bring me to church. I was in a Catholic school growing up. I was, I think, an altar boy even at a young age.
Yeah.
But I'm not, you know, even when I was in prison, you're suffering. You're looking for a power to help you through this period of not seeing your kids, no freedom, not being able to do the things you like, cigars, have a drink, being around women, freedom, your life, and all that. So you go through a suffering. So a lot of people reach out to God and they get into this, you know, Jesus and the religious stuff, and they want to go around and start preaching, and they all become the preachers. I wasn't like that.
Yeah.
I wanted to learn in life. So I read a lot of philosophy, self-help books, anything that could educate my mind. and a lot of self-help books, a lot of philosophy. I read the yogi philosophy. I read the Quran. I read the Bible. I read all these brilliant books that you hear about. I read 1,000 of them, over 1,000 of them. And, to get them all and to put them off, you get the Quran, the Bible and everything and all the self-help and you put them in a big thing and rip the pages up and off and just mix them all up. They all come out with the same message, basically, as far as to do good in life, treat your brother, don't, respect your mother and father.
Well, it's cherry picked from certain books. You can get that message, but not all of them.
Right. Well, it all depends on what your beliefs are. If you're people believe in Jesus, people believe in Muhammad, people believe yogi philosophy, Buddhism. That's religion. But I believe in the higher power because there's God. They said there's only one God. So that's what I believe in, the universe. Headley was a devout Muslim.
Yeah.
Would get on his rug and pray 6 times a day. Mm-hmm. I actually read a book called The Healing Codes where that would make you, I believe like that is a form of meditation when they pray 6 times a day.
Prayer is meditation.
Yeah. So I believe that's what the Healing Codes does through energy, through your hands. And I would do that 3 times a day, 6 minutes at a time. And I was going through a non-curable disease that they said it was uncurable called Graves' disease. The doctors in prison said, you can't get rid of this. Chinese doctor, you got what I got. You'd be on medication your whole life. He put me on methimazole, atenolol, boom, boom, boom. I said, not me. I studied it. I did this. I did do the healing codes and all that. I found out what causes it. I don't have that no more. So I got rid of it. But doctor couldn't believe it. So I don't know if it was the healing codes, might change your mind, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But Headley, we used to have very serious, he was a very intelligent guy, very intelligent. And I used to always come with, I used to read James Allen philosophy book. He wrote As a Man Thinketh. And he wrote a bunch of other ones. And I would be on the treadmill just reading that while I'm on the elliptical and just reading. I'd be on it for like 2 hours at a time, just read. And I would get off and go to him right away and tell him, because he don't want to hear that. He's Muslim. He prays and Allah and Muhammad. But I say, listen, this makes sense right here. Everything that this philosophy makes so much sense. And it did to me. And I believe that wholeheartedly. And I believe in and I believe that way. So yeah, we had some, and our politics were the same. Back then we were both Trump supporters when all that was going on.
Well, the reason I bring him up is because honestly, I've come to have a liking for you. I think you're a great guy. I like having conversations with you. I've been listening to you speak. I read your book. I do find you interesting, and so I don't think I'm gonna have this opportunity again. I mean, I got your number. We talk on the phone sometimes, but still, face to face. I think after hearing you speak for a little while, you're smart with your history. You like your history. You like your facts. And so I just encourage you. I don't like to push religion on anybody. I don't really care what religion people are. It's none of my business. But because I think you're a great guy and I like you, I would just suggest that you look into the history of Jesus just a little bit.
Jesus,
just a little bit.
Yeah, is that what you believe in?
I'm a Christian. I'm a devout Christian.
Yeah, so I do. I believe in Jesus. I believe in the whole, when I pray, I listen, everyone can say they are atheists, but when they're in bad problems, they're praying to gods.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right, so I always say like the Apostle Paul, right? He murdered many Christians, right? But he's apostle.
But he became one of the greatest Christians spreading the word.
But he was a murderer.
Right.
So there is hope for me, guys like me.
But what does Paul say though? There was hope for him because it was through Christ.
Yeah, well, he fell off the horse and got blinded, and then he found Christ, and then he followed Christ. So but he still murdered.
Right, but I'm saying his salvation though.
Yeah, absolutely. Right.
A couple more questions. So Sopranos, your time frame of being in the Mafia, same as them as I mentioned at the beginning. How realistic is it? I know you haven't watched the whole thing. What you see.
They got all the catchy quotes and the catchy phrases and the way everything is.
Yeah,
it's not, and they over dramatize the way they talk and the way it is. It's not like that. It's you don't got a boss like Tony going and yelling and screaming at his guys and you're gonna do
right.
It's not like that. It's more business.
You don't buy it.
I mean, it's similar to I guess certain mobsters. I guess it's close. It's just it's the movies. They overdo it, you know?
I got you. He actually has a quote Tony Soprano has a quote that I want to read to you. It's good to be in something from the ground floor. I came too late for that. I know. But lately, I'm getting the feeling that I came at the end. The best is over. And what he's talking about is the Mafia. He feels like he came at the end part of the Mafia. The golden years were between the 50s and the 80s. He came in the 90s, early 2000s. It was dying down. The modern age is coming out. The forensics, technology, cameras. You can't get away with anything anymore. Rico came out. So did you feel that way too?
I feel 100%, but so I say the same thing. Like, in, you know, my era pretty much was the end of it. Living when you were growing up, it's the end of an era. And if you got caught in that era, you're going to be living the ending type days of it going forward. But who's to say, like, if I was living back in the 50s, who's to say I wouldn't have got killed? You know, because I did so many things. I didn't follow orders. They told me not to sell drugs. I sold drugs. I didn't go on record. I killed and didn't go on record for killing. So, I mean, I broke the rules all the time. I don't think I would have lasted in the 50s. So, but maybe in the 50s, I would have been more, not scared, more
Traditional.
yeah, I wouldn't have tried to break those rules because I know I would have got my head chopped off. So I probably maybe wouldn't have done that.
I got a question about Sammy the Bull and John Gotti's Jr.'s recent interview that he had. He actually said this about Sammy the Bull. I want your perspective on that. He said, the nickname the Bull isn't from being tough. It was from where he was at. There was too many Sammys. And so he was from a place where the Bull was just a way to distinguish from the other Sammys. And that he was actually not really as tough as he claimed to be back in the day. What's your perspective on that? Is that BS that John Gotti Jr. is saying?
John Gotti Jr. has a way to talk where sort of like a politician wants you to believe his narrative. And he's got like in his mind, an intelligent way he speaks where he, uses his verbiage and, higher vocabulary in certain words to try to get his point across and come across. But I don't believe him as, a lot of things that he says. And so I would say it's a possibility that Sammy was from, that's Sammy from Bull, wherever that could have been.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these guys have big egos. I don't believe Gotti.
I'm going to say other names. I just want the first thing that pops up to mind when they come to your head. Joey Merlino. As I say his name? Merlino. What's the beef with you and him?
So, Merlino is a guy that couldn't... So you talk about the Mafia today. And the existence that it is. This guy was supposedly a boss of Philly, running a crew of a major city, Philadelphia. He couldn't do it. Now he's doing podcasts and he's doing YouTube videos because he couldn't make it as a mobster. And that's what the Mafia is today. You got a guy like him. And so what's he going to do? Like all YouTubers do is they need a niche. So he goes after guys that cooperated. And it's going to get views, and he's a guy, but he is no longer part of the Mafia. They shelved him. Back in the day, Nicky Scarfo was going to kill his whole family. We did business with the Angelo Bruno family, our business with them. They were going to murder his uncle. Ended up cooperating. So he talks about rats and guys that cooperated. His uncle cooperated in the Philadelphia mob. His father was such an alcoholic drunk that he was underboss of the family. He was a fall down drunk that they demoted him, Nicky Scarfo, and Nicky Scarfo killed everybody. He demoted him from an underboss to a soldier, which is, you're dead. He was going to kill him. He was just waiting for him just to hiccup Ron, and he was going to kill him. And Joey was shelved. So if Nicky Scarfo lived, you would have never seen any of the Merlinos. The uncle, the ratted, would have never got a chance to rat. The father would have got murdered, and Joey would have got murdered. You go into the 90s, and they say that he was this boss. John Stanford becomes boss of the family. And Ralph Natale comes out. New York anoints who the bosses are. They had no faith and no trust in this Joey Merlino. He doesn't make any money on the streets. He can't make any money. You know how we discuss these things that you make money on, he can't make any money. It comes right out of his mouth. He's not an earner. He's a guy that overboards bookmakers. He's a guy that borrows money off people and doesn't pay them back. And that's the same thing that he's doing now. Gets around big guys down in Florida with money that pay for his things. He opened up a restaurant down in Florida. Other guys' money. They gave him a Rolls Royce to drive around and everything. He couldn't make that last. The restaurant went under. He's a degenerate gambler. Back in the day, Bobby Louise, he made Bobby Louise into the family with the Philadelphia family. Bobby was into cocaine business back then. Joey was in a cocaine in the business and a cocaine user. He wasn't a mafia guy. He was a guy that would rob an armored car, quick score guy. Couldn't make money on the streets. 90s, New York appoints Ralph Natale to be a boss. Not Joey. They appoint Ralph Natale. That's good for Joey, right? They all get indicted. He goes to prison for he beats the murders. He gets 14 years. He gets out of prison. Immediately, he goes down to Florida. He's supposed to be the boss of Philly. Philly's a major city. One of them, I think, the fourth largest in the country, right? He's supposed to be the mob boss of Philly. He runs to Florida and leaves the life. So he walked away. So he broke the oath. You can get killed for breaking the oath. Mike Francisi walked away from the life. There was a hit out on him. You just can't walk away from that life. There's an oath that you take, and if it was back in the day, he would be murdered, 100%. You will never see Barney Belomo, John Gotti Sr., any of these eventually, these guys leaving the life and then doing podcasts, but he can't make any money, right? So his only way to make money without robbing people and is doing this YouTube things.
Michael Francis.
Intelligent businessman.
Gene Barillo.
A wild, good dude, very wild, crazy dude.
John A.
Good man.
Phil Leonetti.
Phil was, and you can ask Phil Leonetti what he thinks of. He was the underboss of Nicky Scarfo. He said Joey Merlino was the worst human being ever to come out of Philadelphia. Joey Merlino robbed Joey Punjatori. Now, you talk about your crew that you're involved, with. He robbed Joey. That's a type of, he's a petty thief. He robbed Joey, and this is fact, came right out of, it's in books, came out of Phil Leonetti's mouth, that he robbed Joey Punjatori's mother's jewelry. So, Phil Leonetti, a dangerous guy with a notorious uncle, mafia boss.
John Gotti.
John Gotti was a legend.
Larry Mazza.
Sharp guy.
Anthony Arillotta.
Was once successful and on his way to be more successful than what he was.
Anthony, thank you for the time, man.
Hey, pleasure. Thank you for having me on.